The planet was the most sacred place in all the 7 galaxies. It was the home of the Dragon Empire, and every dragon in the universe knew its name. The planet had mountains made of black glass and rivers that flowed with liquid silver. But the most important place on this planet was the Obsidian Nest, a temple so old that nobody remembered who built it. Today, the temple was filled with dragons. They came from every corner of the empire. Great lords with scales of blue and green stood next to warriors with battle scars on their wings. Priests in golden robes whispered prayers to the ancient gods. Everyone was waiting. Everyone was watching. Because today, after 3,000 years, a new emperor dragon would be born. High Priestess stood closest to the egg. She was very old, even for a dragon. Her scales had turned from bright purple to soft, and her eyes had seen many things. But she had never seen an egg like this one. It was huge, bigger than a house, and it glowed with a strange red light from inside. Sometimes the light pulsed like a heartbeat. "The time is near," said to the crowd. Her voice was calm, but her claws were shaking. She could feel something powerful inside that egg, something that made her afraid. The egg began to crack. Red light spilled out from the cracks like blood. The dragons in the temple stepped back. Even the bravest warriors felt their hearts beating fast. The cracking sound grew louder and louder until it filled the whole temple. Then the shell exploded. Pieces of egg flew everywhere, and in the center of the destruction sat a baby dragon. He was small, no bigger than a large dog. His scales were the color of pure gold, so bright that it hurt to look at them. His eyes were like 2 small suns, burning with orange and red fire, and around his body the air itself was shaking with power. Took a careful step forward. "Welcome, young emperor," she said softly. "We have waited so long for." The hatchling opened his mouth and screamed. It was not a normal scream. It was a psychic attack that hit every dragon in the temple like a hammer, fell to her knees. Behind her, she heard dragons crying out in pain. The crystal windows of the temple shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. 3 ceremonial guards ran forward with blessing oils. It was tradition to anoint a new hatchling with sacred oils. But the moment they got close, the baby dragon's scales began to glow even brighter. Fire exploded from his body in all directions. The guards were thrown backward, their armor melted, their scales burned. "Get back!" shouted. "Everyone get back!" The nobles did not need to be told twice. They ran. Ancient lords who had fought in 100 wars fled like scared children. The baby dragon watched them go, and there was no fear in his burning eyes, only rage, pure, endless rage. They named him, which meant Great Fire in the old dragon language. But soon, everyone simply called him the Furious One. In the days that followed, the Empire tried everything to calm the hatchling. They brought the best caretakers from across the galaxy. 27 of them ended up in the hospital. They built him a beautiful nursery with toys and soft beds. He burned it down 4 times. They tried special music that was supposed to make dragons sleepy. He melted the instruments. The royal doctors examined him and found nothing wrong with his body. His mind was sharp and intelligent. He understood everything that was said to him. He simply chose violence. He chose anger. Every living thing that came near him was treated as an enemy. 1 month after his birth, Lord, the commander of the Imperial fleet, came to see the hatchling. He was a massive dragon with dark blue scales and a reputation for being tough. "This is foolish," he said to. "He is just a baby. I will show him who is in charge." Walked into the nursery with confidence. He walked out 3 minutes later with no eyebrows and a burned tail. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "we should try a different approach." But there was no different approach. The hatchling attacked everyone equally. He did not care if they were male or female, young or old, noble or common. He hated them all. The only time he was calm was when he was completely alone. Even then, his eyes still burned with that terrible fire. News of the furious Emperor Dragon spread across the 7 galaxies. Other species heard the stories and felt relief. The Dragon Empire was the most powerful force in the universe, and everyone feared them. But now, their future emperor was a monster that even dragons could not control. Perhaps, some thought, the empire would destroy itself from within. High Priestess did not sleep well anymore. Every night, she looked at the ancient books and searched for answers. Why was this hatchling so angry? What had gone wrong? The prophecies said that the Emperor Dragon would bring a new age of glory to the empire. But how could that happen when the emperor could not even be touched? One night, as she was reading by candlelight, she found something strange. It was a very old prophecy, written in a language that few could read. She spent hours translating it, and when she finally understood the words, her blood ran cold. "The Golden Emperor will burn with fury eternal," the prophecy said. "His rage will consume all who approach with power. Only a soul of pure light, without fear, without malice, without understanding of its own mortality, can quiet the fire within." Close the book slowly. A soul of pure light. Where in the 7 galaxies would she find such a thing? She did not know that the answer was already traveling toward them, sitting in a small spaceship, drinking juice from a box, and asking his aunt why stars twinkled. The spaceship was called Starlight Harmony, and it was not very impressive. Compared to the giant warships of other species, it looked like a toy. Humans had only learned to travel between stars 5 years ago. They were new to the galaxy, and nobody took them seriously. Ambassador stood at the window of the ship and looked at the stars. She was a woman of 42 years, with short black hair and tired eyes. This was the most important mission of her life. The Dragon Empire had finally agreed to meet with humans. If she did well, humanity would gain a powerful friend. If she failed, her species would remain alone in a universe full of creatures who saw them as weak and unimportant. Auntie, look at this." Turned around and saw her nephew running toward her. Was 5 years old, with round cheeks and messy hair that never stayed flat. In his arms was a stuffed dinosaur toy that he carried everywhere. He called it. "What is it?" asked. "I found a bug in my room, a space bug. It has 6 legs and it glows." Smiled, even though she was tired. "That is probably just a cleaning robot, little one." "No, it is a bug. Can I keep it?" "We will see. Now are you hungry? Did you eat your lunch?" Nodded proudly. "I ate all the rice, and I gave some to because he was hungry too." Bringing on this mission was Not's choice. His parents, her brother and sister-in-law, were scientists working at a research station very far away. There had been an emergency, and they could not take care of for 3 months. Was the only family member available, and she could not cancel the mission. So now, the most important diplomatic mission in human history included a 5-year-old boy who talked to his stuffed dinosaur. "Ambassador," a voice came from the door. It was her assistant, a young man named. "We will arrive at planet in 2 hours. The draconian officials have sent the welcoming protocol." "Good, what does it say?" Looked at his tablet. "We must bow 3 times when we meet them. We cannot look directly at any dragon of noble blood. We cannot speak unless spoken to. We cannot touch anything. We cannot." "I understand," said. "There are many rules." Yes, an ambassador looked at, who was now making his stuffed dinosaur fly through the air. "What about the boy?" Sighed. "I will keep him close to me. He will be fine, is a good boy. He knows how to behave." At that exact moment, tripped over his own feet and fell face first onto the floor. He got up immediately, laughing. "I am okay," he announced. "Protected me." And exchanged worried looks. 2 hours later, the Starlight Harmony landed on planet. The moment the doors opened, felt her breath catch in her throat. Everything was so big. The landing platform alone was larger than her entire back on Earth, and the dragons who waited for them were terrifying. They stood in a line, each one bigger than a truck. Their scales shone in colors that had never seen before. Their eyes were sharp and intelligent, and they looked at the humans with expressions that were not friendly. To them, these soft, small creatures were nothing special, just another weak species trying to find their place in the galaxy. Walked down the ramp slowly, keeping her back straight. Behind her, her team followed, and behind them, holding her hand very tightly, was Auntie whispered loudly, "Those are big lizards." Said quickly, "They are dragons, do not call them lizards." "But they look like lizards, big, pretty lizards." A dragon near the front made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been offense. Felt sweat forming on her forehead. Lord stepped forward. He was the official who would receive them. His scales were dark blue, and half of his left horn was missing from some old battle. He looked at the humans the way someone might look at insects. "You are the Earth delegation," he said. His voice was deep and rumbling. "You are smaller than I expected." Bowed 3 times, exactly as the protocol said. "We are honored to be received by the great Dragon Empire. We come with peaceful intentions and hope for friendship between our peoples." Made that strange sound again. "Friendship, yes, we shall see." His eyes moved down to, "Why have you brought a larva?" "AIDS larva. A child, a young one. This is a diplomatic mission, not a nursery." Felt her face grow hot. There were circumstances that. "I am not a larva," said suddenly. "I am a boy, and I am 5 years old. That is very old." Everyone went silent. The dragons stared. The humans held their breath, wanted to disappear into the ground. But then something unexpected happened. Lord laughed. It was a real laugh, loud and surprised. "The small one has fire," he said. "Perhaps humans are not completely boring after all. Come, we will take you to your rooms. The official ceremonies begin tomorrow." As they walked through the massive hallways of the draconian palace, looked around with wide eyes. He was not afraid at all. To him, this was the most amazing adventure ever. Real dragons, a real alien planet. Wait until he told his friends back home. None of them knew that somewhere in this very palace, a golden hatchling with burning eyes was about to escape from his handlers. And none of them knew that this escape would change everything. The welcoming ceremony was long and boring, at least for. The adults stood in a big hall and talked about things he did not understand. Trade agreements, diplomatic relations, cultural exchange. The words meant nothing to him. He held close and tried to count the crystals hanging from the ceiling. He got to 47 before he lost track. Ambassador kept one hand on shoulder. She was listening carefully to everything the dragons said. This was so important. This was history being made. Humanity's first real relationship with an alien empire. Then the screaming started. It came from somewhere deep in the palace. A terrible sound, like metal being torn apart mixed with the roar of 1,000 fires. The dragons in the ceremony hall stopped talking. Their faces changed from calm to worried. "What is that?" asked. Lord's expression was dark. "The hatchling, he has escaped again." More screams, closer now. Guards began running through the halls, could hear them shouting orders to each other. She pulled closer. "Everyone stay where you are," commanded. "The Imperial Guard will handle this." But was not paying attention. Through the open door of the ceremony hall, he had seen something wonderful. A small creature made of light was floating in the hallway. It looked like a butterfly, but it was glowing with soft blue and purple colors. It was the most beautiful thing had ever seen. "Look," he whispered to his stuffed dinosaur, "a fairy." The light creature floated away, disappearing around a corner, looked up at his aunt. She was talking to the other humans, her face serious and worried. She was not paying attention to him. Made a decision. He would just look at the fairy for a second, just 1 second, then he would come right back. He slipped away from his aunt's hand and walked quietly toward the door. Nobody noticed. Everyone was too busy watching the guards run past, followed the glowing butterfly down the hallway. "Wait, fairy, I want to see you." The creature floated around another corner, ran after it, then another corner, and another. Soon he had no idea where he was. The hallways all looked the same with their black glass walls and silver floors. The butterfly finally stopped at a big door. It floated through the door like the door was not even there, pushed the door open and stepped inside. He found himself in a garden. It was the most amazing garden he had ever seen. The flowers were made of crystal, and they made soft ringing sounds when the wind touched them. The grass was silver, and the trees had leaves that changed color every few seconds. In the middle of the garden, there was a small pond with water so clear that could see beautiful stones at the bottom. And sitting beside the pond was a baby dragon. Stopped walking. He stared with wide eyes. The dragon was about the same size as a big dog. Its scales were gold, bright and shiny like his mother's favorite necklace. Its eyes were strange, burning with fire like two tiny suns. Around its body the air was shaking and hot. The dragon turned its head and looked at. For a moment nothing happened. The dragon stared at the small human. The small human stared at the dragon. Somewhere in the distance, guards were still running and shouting. Then the dragon opened its mouth. Fire began to gather in its throat. Its scales glowed brighter. The air became so hot that the crystal flowers nearby began to melt. Smiled. "Wow," he said, "you are so pretty." The fire in the dragon's throat flickered. The glow of its scales dimmed slightly. Nobody had ever said that to him before. "Are you a baby dinosaur?" asked, walking closer. "I have a dinosaur too. His name is C." He held up his stuffed toy. The dragon looked at it with confusion. What was happening? Why was this creature not running away? Why was it not afraid? Was now very close. So close that the heat from the dragon's body should have burned his skin. But something strange was happening. The dragon was making itself cooler. It did not know why it was doing this. It just happened like breathing. "Your scales are so shiny," said. He reached out his small hand. "Can I pet you?" Inside the palace, High Priestess felt something change. She had been running toward the garden, following the trail of destruction left by the hatchling. But suddenly, the feeling of rage that always came from the hatchling became quiet. Not gone, but quiet, like a storm that had suddenly become a gentle rain. She reached the garden and stopped at the door. What she saw made her old heart nearly stop beating. The Emperor Dragon hatchling, the furious one, the creature that had burned 27 handlers and destroyed 4 nurseries, was lying on the ground with his eyes half closed, and a tiny human child was petting his head. "Good boy," was saying. "Good dragon, you are so soft." Well, not really soft, kind of hard, but still nice. And the dragon was purring. Had never heard an emperor dragon purr. She had read about it in ancient books, but she thought it was just a legend. The sound was low and deep, like a gentle earthquake. It was the sound of contentment, the sound of peace. "By the ancient gods," whispered, "it is him, the soul of pure light." More dragons arrived behind her, lords and guards and priests. They all stopped at the door. They all stared. Nobody could believe what they were seeing. Looked up and saw all the dragons watching him. He waved happily. "Hello, I found your baby dinosaur. He is very nice. Can I keep him?" Nobody answered. Nobody could find words. The Emperor Dragon hatchling, the future ruler of 7 galaxies, opened one burning eye and looked at the crowd. Then he moved his body so that was between him and the other dragons. His message was clear. "This human is mine. Come closer and I will burn you all." Then he closed his eye and went back to enjoying the petting. The news spread across the palace like wildfire. Then it spread across the planet. Then it spread across the entire empire. Within 3 days, every creature in the 7 galaxies had heard the story. The furious Emperor Dragon hatchling had been tamed by a human child. Nobody believed it at first. How could a tiny, soft, weak human do what the greatest dragon handlers could not? It had to be a mistake. It had to be a trick. But it was true. Ambassador did not know whether to be proud or terrified. Her nephew had done something impossible. He had also created a very complicated diplomatic situation. The Dragon Empire now wanted something from humanity. They wanted. "The boy must stay," Lord said during an emergency meeting. "The hatchling needs him." "He is a child," replied. "He has a family. He needs to go to school. He cannot just live on an alien planet." "Then we will build him a school. We will bring his family here, whatever is needed." Shook her head. "This is not something I can decide. I need to speak with the Earth government." While the adults argued and the dragons spent every moment together, the palace staff gave them a special room with soft beds and many toys, taught the dragon important things, like how to play hide and seek, how to make shadow puppets, and why strawberry milk was the best drink in the universe. The dragon learned quickly. He was very intelligent, maybe the most intelligent creature ever born, but he had never had a friend before. He had never played games or shared food or laughed at silly things. He discovered a whole new way of living. "Why were you so angry before?" asked one day. They were sitting in the crystal garden, sharing a juice box, drank from one side and carefully sucked from the other side, trying not to melt the box with his breath. Thought about the question. He could speak through his mind, sending thoughts directly to his brain. It was how dragons communicated with lesser species. "Everyone was afraid of me," said its mind. "When they looked at me, I could feel their fear. It made me angry. Why should I be kind to creatures who only saw me as a monster?" Nodded seriously. "My friend was afraid of my neighbor's dog. The dog was big and loud. But then she pet the dog and now they are best friends. Maybe the dragons just needed to pet you." "Nobody tried to pet me. They tried to control me, to train me, to make me obey." "That is silly. You cannot make friends by telling them what to do," pat its head gently. "You make friends by being nice and sharing snacks. Do you want more strawberry milk?" Made a low, happy sound. He had become slightly addicted to strawberry milk. It was a problem that the palace staff had never expected to deal with. High Priestess watched them from a distance. She had spent the last few days studying, trying to understand what made him special. He was not particularly smart for a human. He was not strong or fast or magical. He was just a normal child. But that was exactly what made him perfect. Had no agenda. He did not want power or wealth or fame. He did not see as the future emperor of 7 galaxies. He saw as a friend who had cool scales and needed someone to play with. His heart was completely pure, without any selfishness or fear. The dragons had approached with bowing and ceremony and careful protocol. They had treated him as something to be handled, but had approached him with open arms and a simple question: "Can I pet you?" Sometimes thought, the most complicated problems had the simplest solutions. The Earth government eventually made a decision. Would stay on planet for now, but his parents would be brought to join him. He would receive education from both human teachers and draconian scholars. He would be named the official Dragon Companion, a title that had never existed before and was created just for him. In return, the Dragon Empire signed a protection treaty with Earth. Humanity was now under the direct protection of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. No one would dare to attack them or treat them as inferior again. Did not really understand any of this. He was just happy that he got to stay with his new friend. Months passed, grew bigger and stronger. His power increased every day, but instead of becoming more dangerous, he became more gentle. He learned to control his fire, to calm his rage, to see other creatures as something other than threats. Taught him how to be kind. Taught about the stars, about history, about the secrets of the universe. They learned from each other in ways that nobody expected. One night's parents arrived on planet. His mother, a woman named, cried when she saw her son. His father hugged him so tight that complained he could not breathe. "Were you scared?" asked. living here with the dragons, being so far from home. Shook his head. No, Mom, I was never scared, I had. At that moment, the ground shook slightly. Had grown too big to fit inside buildings, so he waited outside. He pushed his massive golden head through a window, his burning eyes looking at the new humans. These are your parents, his voice echoed in everyone's minds. They made you. Nodded proudly. Yes, Mom, Dad, he is my best friend. Fainted. Caught her, his face very pale. Looked at with concern. Is that normal for humans? Sometimes, said with a small laugh. They just need a minute. Outside the window, across the silver landscape of planet, the twin moons rose into the sky. Somewhere in the galaxy, news stations were reporting on the strange friendship between a dragon and a human. Leaders of other species were discussing what this meant for the balance of power. Scholars were writing papers about the nature of bonds between different life forms. But in that room, none of that mattered. There was just a boy, his family, and his best friend together under an alien sky. And for the first time in his life, understood what happiness really meant. 10 years passed like the blink of an eye. Was no longer a small boy with round cheeks and messy hair. He was 15 now, tall and lean, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He still carried with him, though the stuffed dinosaur was old and worn, held together by patches and love. Was no longer a hatchling who could fit in a garden. He was now a full emperor dragon, the largest and most powerful creature in the known universe. His wingspan could cover a small city. His fire could melt the strongest metal. When he flew through space, he did not need a ship. The stars themselves made way for him. But when he was still the same dragon who had learned to share juice boxes and play hide and seek. The Dragon Empire had changed in 10 years. With as their emperor and as his companion, they had become less aggressive, more willing to talk before fighting. Other species no longer trembled at the mention of dragons. They still respected them, but the respect was mixed with something new. Curiosity, perhaps, even warmth. Humanity had changed too. Under the protection of the Dragon Empire, they had grown and learned. They built better ships, discovered new technologies, and established colonies on many worlds. They were no longer the weak newcomers of the galaxy. They were partners of the most powerful empire in existence. His parents lived happily on planet. His father worked as a scientist, studying the strange crystals that grew everywhere on the planet. His mother had become a teacher, running a school for both human and dragon children. They had made this alien world their home. Everything was peaceful, everything was good. And then the darkness came. It started as a strange shadow at the edge of the galaxy. Ships that went to investigate never came back. Then whole planets went silent. Communication stopped. When scouts finally got close enough to see what was happening, they found nothing. The planets were still there, but everything on them was dead. Not just dead, consumed, empty. High Priestess, now very ancient, recognized the signs. The Void Swarm, she said, her voice filled with fear. They have returned. The Void Swarm was an enemy from the oldest stories. Millions of years ago, before the Dragon Empire existed, before any current species was born, the Void Swarm had nearly destroyed all life in the galaxy. They were not creatures in the normal sense. They were living darkness, hungry emptiness that ate everything and left nothing behind. The ancient races had defeated them, but at a terrible cost. Everyone thought the swarm was gone forever. They were wrong. Every species in the galaxy prepared for war. The dragons gathered their fleets. Other empires sent their armies. Even humanity, still young and small, sent every ship they had. But everyone knew the truth. It would not be enough. The Void Swarm was too vast, too hungry, too endless. Called a meeting of all galactic leaders. They gathered on planet, hundreds of species, thousands of representatives, all looking at the massive golden dragon with desperate hope. We cannot defeat them with conventional weapons, said. His voice echoed not just in the room but in the minds of everyone present. The Void Swarm does not fight like normal enemies. They do not have ships to destroy or soldiers to kill. They are emptiness itself. "Then what can we do?" asked a leader from a species of insect-like creatures. "Should we simply wait to die?" "No," his eyes burned brighter than ever. "I will fight them, but I will not fight alone." He turned his great head to look at, who stood calmly at the edge of the room. "You are coming with me," said. It was not a question. Smiled, "Of course I am. Someone has to make sure you do not do anything stupid." Ran forward. "No, you cannot, it is too dangerous." Hugged his mother gently. "Mom, do you remember what you told me when I was little? You said that if someone has the power to help, they should help, has the power, and I am the only one who can stand beside him when he uses it. But you could die. Everyone could die if we do nothing." Stepped back and looked at his father, who stood with tears in his eyes. "I am not afraid. I was never afraid." Nodded slowly. He understood. His son had grown into a brave young man, the kind of man who ran toward danger to protect others. The next day, flew into space with on his back. They wore special suits that let them survive in the void, but really did not need one. When he was near, the dragon's power kept him safe. It had always been that way. The Void Swarm was waiting at the edge of the galaxy. It was so large that it blocked out the stars. A wall of pure darkness, hungry and endless, ready to consume everything. Other fleets hung back, watching, praying. Stopped in space, facing the darkness. "Are you ready?" he asked through their mental link. "Always," replied. "Let us save the galaxy." Opened his mouth and breathed fire. But this was not normal fire. This was the fire of an emperor dragon, the flame in existence. It was the opposite of the Void Swarm. Where the swarm was emptiness, this fire was fullness. Where the swarm was hunger, this fire was satisfaction. Where the swarm was darkness, this fire was light. The flame spread across space, pushing back the darkness. The Void Swarm screamed, though no one could hear it. They tried to retreat, but was faster. He flew into their heart, burning everything he touched. And through it all held on. He was not just a passenger. Through their bond, he gave something that the dragon could never have alone. He gave him courage without violence, strength without anger, purpose without hatred. The battle lasted for 7 days. Every species in the galaxy watched through long-range sensors, hardly daring to breathe. They saw the golden dragon dance through the darkness, leaving trails of fire that looked like new stars. They saw the small figure on his back, somehow surviving forces that should have destroyed any living thing. On the 7th day, the Void Swarm was gone. Floated in space, exhausted but alive. Lay on his back, breathing hard but smiling. "We did it," said. "We did it," agreed, together. When they returned to planet, every species in the galaxy was waiting. Dragons and humans, insects and fish people, creatures of gas and beings of light. They all cheered together. They had been saved. The universe would continue. At a ceremony afterward, a reporter asked how he had done it. How had one human boy befriended the most powerful dragon in history? How had he found the courage to fly into battle against living darkness? Thought about the question for a long time, then he shrugged. He just looked lonely, said, "Everyone needs a friend." Beside him, the Emperor Dragon, ruler of 7 galaxies, savior of all life, the mightiest being in existence, made a sound deep in his chest. He was purring. And in that moment, every species in the galaxy understood the true power of humanity. It was not strength or technology or weapons. It was something much simpler. It was kindness. It was connection. It was the willingness to reach out a hand to something strange and scary and say, "Can I pet you?" That was how humans changed the universe. One friend at a time.